Good afternoon and welcome. I'm David Cameron. I'm the director of the program in European Union Studies, and it's a pleasure for me to welcome you here and to welcome our guests here for another in the recurring panels on the challenges for stability and security in the region of the Black Sea. And today we have quite a large panel of speakers. Yuriy Sergeyev, former ambassador for Ukraine and permanent representative at the UN, who is also the Rice Faculty Fellow here at Macmillan Center, will be chairing this panel and leading the discussion. And we're delighted to have here several representatives of the countries, at least some of the countries, most of the countries, on the Black Sea that I think you can see despite the lights. First of all, we have Ambassador Kaha Imnadze, of permanent representative of Georgia to the UN. Ambassador Vlad Lupan, the permanent representative of Moldova. We have first Counsellor Rauf Denktas of the permanent mission of Turkey to the UN. And we have Colonel Florin Roman, a military advisor for the permanent mission of Romania, and Colonel Mykhailo Kyrylenko, the military advisor to the permanent mission for Ukraine. So we have a large representation of countries that are involved in the Black Sea and have concerns both in regard to security and stability in the region of the Black Sea. So it's a real pleasure to have everyone here to share their views and their thoughts, and I'm delighted to turn it over to Yuriy, who will start the discussion.
I thank Professor Cameron for his permanent support of all these roundtables, which is a part of the European studies. Thank you for hosting today's event. And we expect that we'll have the next one in April, again on the region, on the Visegrad Group as a forum of stability. Today, I'm so delighted to have my colleagues, former colleagues, current friends from the United Nations to come and to share with us on the extremely important and challenging issue. So, as you know, throughout the centuries, if not the millenniums, Black Sea region, due to different internal circumstances and external involvement, faced both ups and downs, wars and peace, cooperation and confrontation. Even now, in the 21st century, the region is still shadowed by persisting historical rivals, unrecognized territorial entities, frozen conflicts, and security threats. The threats to the security on the Black Sea region are multiple and varied. The main objective of today's roundtable is to share the vision of the Black Sea littoral states today presented at the panel, with the exception of Russian Federation, on the main challenges to their country's security. In military political, we have two military advisors who recognize that Yale is demilitarized zone and they are not in their uniforms. But this is tradition of United Nations as well. So economic challenges, energy challenges, illegal migration challenges, drugs trafficking. So we have a group of highly professional experts for our discussion. And I ask all the panelists, well, to be concise with their presentations, and so to have finally the opportunity to exchange the views and for the questions and answers. And I would like to give the floor to the first speaker, the distinguished ambassador of Georgia, Kaha Imnadze. Kaha, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Yuriy. Thank you all. It's always a pleasure to come back to Yale, and it's a pleasure to be a part of this distinguished panel roundtable. To start with, may I first take off my UN hat, because what we are going to discuss, it's not necessarily an issue that UN directly is involved with. And again, to be concise, as you mentioned, let me give you what we have to set a stage, what we have in the Black Sea. Obviously, much has been written about the Black Sea, and I don't want to bore you with yet another presentation, but let me tell you the vision, how we see the reality in the Black Sea area, how we perceive that reality. Obviously, the Black Sea, it is a connection between Europe and Asia, or rather Central Asia, with important maritime trade routes, and that also includes the routes for oil and gas export, the key pipelines that are key to Europe's energy diversity supply. Now, this is one premise that we have. The other premise is increasing militarization of the region that we are observing currently because of the ongoing conflicts or the tensions, also diversity of relations that are among not just the littoral states of the Black Sea, but also those who have stake, the stakeholders in the Black Sea. And obviously during the Q&As and discussions, we can obviously elaborate more on that. But we definitely, when we talk about it, first that comes up is relation between Russia and Ukraine, which is a war today. We also have Russia and Georgia, which is not a war compared to Ukraine, although we do not have a peace agreement after the 2008 war. We do have a ceasefire agreement. Then there is an uneasy relationship between Armenia and Azerbaijan, with occasional shootings and escalation of hostilities, where obviously there is Russian clout in that relations. Same, I would say, about Moldova, although my friend and colleague from Moldova will speak for itself, but also this is, again, a country that has issues related to its territorial integrity, and again, name of Russia somewhere in the air. Of course, relations between NATO as a bloc and Russian Federation, and different relationship that existed, including historically between Russia and Turkey, as two very important players in the Black Sea area. And the third and very important premise that we have is that the mainstays of international order, as we had it today, territorial integrity and non-interference in the domestic affairs, it's not just being challenged in the Black Sea area. Let's say it openly. The table is upset because we have, in the case of my country, two territories, two regions that are currently under occupation, and in case of Ukraine, territory that was annexed. Something that is really unprecedented for the late period of history that we had after the Second World War. And if we look at the Black Sea, the interest that of those players that I just mentioned, for the reasons mentioned above and also for various other reasons, the same players are also represented in the Middle East, which could be even hotter in terms of the conflict potential. And if we add to that, again, uneasy relationship between, let's say, Saudi Arabia and Iran. And by the way, Iran is also a player in the Caucasus, which is, I would consider part of the Black Sea area in a way, plus its potential projection on Central Asia and that part of Asia. And you all know the issues related to Syria, the issues related to Iraq, and how that plays out, all the interests that are there from the West in general, say European Union or the West, United States, Russia, and other regional players in the Middle East. Of course, it will influence state of game in the Black Sea, area. So, Black Sea does have importance for Europe in terms of energy supply diversity. For Georgia, speaking for my country, it is indeed a link to Europe, and at the same time, it's a part of our current function as a true bridge between Europe and Asia, Central Asia, and all the energy transit corridor that goes through Georgia onto Turkey and then to Europe. And what is most important in the play of Black Sea and the Middle East is, and in general, much how this will be played out will have reflection on, call it the future world order or the future of international relations. Because Russian Federation that is involved in all these matters, and we do have, as many say today, resurgent Russia or new Russia. In any way, Russia is back in the game. Black Sea is indeed the stepping stone. We can go back to the history. I don't want to bore you. I'm sure you very well know. But this is indeed the stepping stone on Russia's assertion of being coming back as another pole of power. Therefore, this game of play that we have in the Black Sea with all the challenges and the Middle East in many ways will determine, I believe, the next stage of how we are going to see international relations in or the new world order, if you may say so. From my country's perspective, our vision is that we do want our country to be a really true bridge where everybody can cooperate. Our aspirations are well known. We want our integration with Europe, within European structures and Euro-Atlantic structures. This is part of our culture, part of our historic aspirations, and also part of our security needs. At the same time, we demonstrated that we can be really a bridge. We have free trade agreement with Europe. We have free trade agreement with China. We have free trade agreement with Turkey and many countries, and we do have that aspiration to have a country as that area of cooperation. With regard to the Russian Federation, we do want to normalize our relationship. We've attempted that. We have a special office, special representative of the Prime Minister of Georgia for relations with Russia, where we discuss many issues related to economy, culture, humanitarian affairs. We also have a format where we officially talk in the presence of international community on political issues, which is the Geneva International Discussion, because we do understand you cannot change geography. And we honestly want to live in the same village or the same house, call it, but not in the same apartment. So we want to have a very good relations, but not at the expense of our sovereignty. This is what I wanted to say very briefly, also to give enough time to my colleagues. And just to finish, what needs to be done? Of course, I don't have recipe. But one thing that we believe is absolutely necessary is the stronger international institutions. Because if we undermine the existing international institutions now, and if we undermine the rules of the games that we have established, that will lead us to even dire consequences. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your comprehensive vision on the Baltic, Black Sea, and beyond. Kaha Imnadze, Ambassador, was in the Georgian political well-known expert in the security, being the Deputy Secretary to the National Security Council of Georgia. He was advisor to the President. And of course, Georgia is a very important player in the region because all the pipelines who are running to Europe from the east are running through Georgia. Even those who are still on the paper, Nabucco, White Stream, Baku-Ceyhan, and many, many others. So thank you. And now I would like to give the floor to Ambassador Vlad Lupan from Moldova. Vlad, you have the floor.
Thank you, Yuriy. Since Yuriy has mentioned the energy-related issues, and this is the subject that I'm going to talk about today, I'll start with an interesting historical sort of fact. The collapse of the Soviet Union, as a matter of fact, according to Igor Gaidar, former Russia Prime Minister, came, among other reasons, as a result of the inefficiency of the Soviet economy, which could not cope with a sharp drop in revenues from oil exports. This is how an author, Simon Sarajan, in December 2016 sums up the issues on a website called Russia Matters. This is Igor Gaidar's book, where he actually mentions how the gas prices and the oil prices have influenced the demise of the Soviet Union. This, of course, was not the sole factor that determined the collapse of the Soviet Union, and one cannot compare today's Russia, for example, with USSR's planned economy. However, it makes the issue of concerns about oil and gas prices, the networks, dependencies more understandable for today's follower of this aspect of the security. While the relations with Russia went up to ups in the 90s, the beginning of 90s, the hopes were high. The mere fact that it actually fueled at those very beginning of 90s and supported a host of separatist conflicts in the post-Soviet space, from Azerbaijan to the Republic of Moldova and Georgia, was more than enough to consider that Russia stepped into the shoes of its USSR predecessor, well known for its Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, by which parts of Europe were divided. Although not often discussed, both the historical and modern developments such as these conflicts and new signals of Russian reborn assertiveness based on its current power, where Mr. Putin became a prime minister in 1999 and then president in 2000, has been more than sufficient for a number of states from the region to seek NATO and EU membership. The argument that NATO expansion provoked Russia is the reverse of the actual idea that most of the new NATO members simply ran away from a confrontational Russia during the 90s, when they could. By 2004, the evolution of the local and international scenes led to an increased discussion about energy aspects of the international security. Russia was already involved in the Transnistrian conflict resolution in the Republic of Moldova, or South Ossetian and Abkhazian talks in Georgia, in which it implicated itself initially and militarily as a supporter of the separatists, then as a mediator and so-called peacekeeper. Concurrently, Russia also temporarily blocked gas supplies to the Republic of Moldova in 1992 during the separatist conflict, and has acted restrictively in the case of Georgia as well, both then and later in 2006. It also waged a serious gas war against Ukraine in 2006 and 2009, disconnecting it from gas supplies, justifying it by commercial reasons, including, and one of the reasons was $1 billion in arrears. A little known fact is that at the very same time, the Transnistrian separatist region in the Republic of Moldova has already amassed a debt of about $2 billion, while Russia never disconnected or constrained the separatists on account of their commercial arrears. The Transnistrian separatist debt today is almost $6 billion. And Russia suggested very recently that if it recognizes the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Republic of Moldova, then Moldovan side has to assume and pay that debt made by Russian proxies who made the population of the region pay to them without resending money further to Gazprom. And Russian Gazprom, as a matter of fact, controls in a combined share with the separatists 63% of the Moldova gas company, while the Republic of Moldova depends almost entirely on Russian gas. I'm sorry to say this, but the mother company is requesting its daughter company to pay the mother company $6 billion. The left hand is asking the right hand to be paid. These are facts which we cannot avoid. Coming back to the 90s, we shall mention that new arrangements were made for gas supply to and through former Soviet republics, now independent states. These included barter agreement in Georgia or payment of fees to Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova for transiting respective territories and using gas networks. While looking purely as commercial deals, these again had unfortunately political connotations. Thus, some negotiations on gas debt accumulated by poor Soviet states included attempts to actually deal with conflicts or takeovers of national gas networks, as I've just reflected earlier, and in other cases, thus connecting the energy security and conflict resolution dots. I was a member of such a negotiations. I'm speaking from experience. To deal with conflicts and also avoid unilateral energy dependency and its consequences, to deal with infrastructure, to deal with counterterrorism and other issues, as a matter of fact, Georgia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, and the Republic of Moldova created the Organization for Democracy and Economic Development in 1997, a sort of an alternative organization for the countries that were concerned, among other things, of energy-related issues. The organization has a very funny name, US-inspired name, Guam, because it's Georgia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, and Moldova, but that's how it's actually called. But it's interesting to see what's the reaction of the Russian side in an organization to which it does not participate and does not control. The most forthcoming account of Russian concerns about Guam was delivered by one of many so-called Christian Orthodox websites you can find nowadays in Russia, many of them. In this particular case, it's One Motherland. In 2012, they wrote, since its inception in 1997, Guam has been an obedient tool for ensuring US political and economic interests in the region. According to the State Department Chief Advisor on Eurasia, Stephen Mann, the United States initiated the creation of Guam as a way to graft geopolitical pluralism in the post-Soviet state. No source of this graft code was ever provided, but nevertheless, this was written down. And further on, the same website states, as the main economic goal, the creation of the Eurasian Transcaucasian Transport Corridor was announced, which fits into the long-term plans of the US to block economic relations between the Russian Federation and the EU, in particular in energy supplies, under the slogan to reduce the energy dependence of the EU on Russia. Guam was actually created by the Americans as an association of states on whose territories transit routes for the supplies of hydrocarbons from Asia to Europe will bypass Russia, they said. Well, you can see the mentality on the other side, and you have to understand how the other side is actually looking at these matters. I'm not saying they're wrong, I'm not saying they're right, but you can see the discrepancy of views is enormous. While building alternative energy corridors was a result of use of gas as a political weapon from the perspective of Black Sea states, the Russian reverse psychology did not stop the attempts to attain the energy independency by the Black Sea region states. These oppositional views did not mean that the Black Sea region states would still not pursue one or another form of energy independence. In a 2004 German Marshall Fund study on new Euro-Atlantic strategy for the Black Sea region, to which I had the pleasure to contribute, the authors argued about the notion of a wider Black Sea region, essentially speaking about the Eurasian energy corridor, with the importance of resolution of frozen conflicts around that corridor as a transit route. Vast energy reserves of the Caspian Basin and Central Asia to European markets not only will help ensure the prosperity of a political independent Europe for decades to come, but the construction and maintenance of these routes will provide an important economic stimulus to the economies that were left behind in the revolution of 1989, the study says. I think there is an objective economic factor behind this kind of assertion. And speaking about the independence and energy, as examples, in 2013, when pro-Russian Ukrainian President Yanukovych rejected a deal with EU, Gazprom prices fell by a third, while after being ousted in several months, they went up by 81%. If this is not politically motivated, well, we'll have to ask ourselves what it is. Or, in 2013, the Republic of Moldova was discussing a deep and comprehensive free trade area deal with the European Union, and in response to those talks, Russia threatened to cut gas supplies to Moldova, with the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister sarcastically warning the Moldovans that we hope that you will not freeze this winter. I'm quoting from open media, he said it in public. Definitely, we need to look at such projects as Romania-Moldova gas pipeline and the entry of the Republic of Moldova and Ukraine in European energy community because of such events. We have to look at work of the Azerbaijani-Georgia-Romania interconnector of liquefied natural gas as one of the alternatives. And the example of, for example, Lithuania on the Baltic Sea that brought an LNG ship from the US next to its shores to ensure its independence. We have to look how the Azerbaijani are working on the expansion of Shah Deniz Stage 2 that is completed by 87% currently, and the construction of the Southern Gas Corridor as an example. One cannot deny that such actions were more than motivated initially by Russian ups and downs in oil and gas prices, embargoes, support to separatist entities, and other so-called non-politically motivated actions, without which these countries would not have looked for alternatives in the first place. On its end, to circumvent Ukraine and other Eastern Europeans, Russia worked around such projects and proposed to play directly with Western Europeans. One should remember that Russia dropped bombs near Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline during Georgian war. That raised questions about the similar projects. The investments simply disappeared at that very moment. And Nabucco discussions are dormant now. On another hand, the war in Ukraine, a country that was supposed to become one of the main alternate routes for Caspian and other gas, voided entirely that discussion for Kiev. The wars in Georgia and Ukraine managed to get important energy connotations as one of their components that cannot be disregarded in the current developments. Even the occupation of Crimea and involvement in eastern Ukraine reminded about two elements. The fact that there might be shale gas near Crimea and in eastern Ukraine, and the fact that Russia can claim Crimea's economic zone to successfully disrupt the alternative pipeline options. This can be done. Also, Russia, up to Ukraine war, successfully played the Western Europeans against each other, hiring former Chancellor Schroeder as its German branch Gazprom chief, or promising either Belgians or Hungarians or Austrians to channel gas through their countries, thus placing them in charge of important gas distribution hubs and in competition against each other and to Eastern Europe. Russians simply had direct contacts with Germany and Netherlands to suggest building pipelines around Ukraine, such as Nord Stream, which reported increased transit last year, for example. On another hand, Russian energy experts are writing that 2 more projects, such as Nord Stream 2 and Turkish Stream, are designed to reduce transit volumes from Gazprom's traditional partners, and therefore may remain dead-end gas pipelines, while Romania has the key for the Turkish Stream, and Romania definitely will use such a key, according to the Russians and Russian experts in gas-related issues. And Romania seems to have found larger amounts of gas near its shores as well, which is another element. Understanding its role not only as energy consumer, but also as a supplier of security, is important for the Western Europe. We are not living, maybe Western Europe is living in the postmodern security world where democracies do not attack each other, but we don't. Former Danish Prime Minister and NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen recently wrote that a recent paper highlights that Nord Stream 2 would not only make Germany more dependent on Russian energy, but also strengthen Gazprom's position and leverage on the European market, in addition to hindering efforts towards the diversification of sources of energy supplies. This means hindering the security of both Western and Eastern Europe. Ultimately, and this is to conclude, the question is what will be the next steps? Competing bilaterally and paying for Russian gas that ultimately arms an actual aggressor that might end up controlling you, us, or use the already adopted European energy strategy, replacing up to 30%, 36% to be precise, of its Russian gas by Caspian oil and gas, LNG terminals, energy efficiency projects, green energy projects, and so on. This is still a question not only Europe needs to answer if it is serious about its own role and its own democracy, but US as well. I would like to add one more disclaimer here, is that I have personally advocated for better relations with Russia, starting and coming from the idea that a dialogue on these issues and an open mind on these issues, even if they are not pleasant for both sides, would be a better choice for our future. Unfortunately, up to now, we didn't feel that there is a same type of the response on the other side. A more milder attitude, do not talk about it. I'm quoting an ambassador of the Russian Federation. Do not talk about it. Attitude was considered a better option for such people like, for example, myself. So even by presenting this paper, I'm already overstepping this kind of line of relations with the Russian Federation, so that you understand the sensitivities between the sides when we are discussing these matters. And I definitely am not an anti-Russian, as some Russians might think in these circumstances. But that's how it works. With this, I stop, and Yuriy, thank you very much for this opportunity.
At least you are a Russian speaker, so they are to protect you as well.
Причем могу и с московским акцентом, если сильно.
Great. Vlad, thank you for sharing with us your expert view on the very challenging issue for the region, the energy one. As the former parliamentarian and the leader of one of the Moldova party, naturally you know the economic challenges in details, including not only for Moldova but beyond. Thank you. And now I have a privilege and honor to invite to take a floor the representative of one of the biggest neighbor and the strategic partner for all of us in the region, the representative of the mission of Turkey to the United Nations, the first Counsellor, Mr. Rauf Denktas, who is, well, he's the expert in cooperation with NATO. on the disarmament and all the related issues. He is covering the first committee in the United Nations from his mission. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you for coming in a rainy day to listen to us. By way of introduction, you mentioned I'm the first committee expert, but those of you do know the UN also realize that it's the most boring job at the UN ever. So it was a relief to come up to Yale to take this opportunity and talk with you on something a little more interesting than what I do daily. Now, I don't intend to dwell on the importance of the Black Sea region and its security to you. As we are all here, we realize the importance, and Excellency speaking before me have already set the stage perfectly in many aspects. One thing I wish to touch upon, with your permission, is the institutional aspect of it, as Mr. Ambassador has mentioned, but not international, but rather regional, because Turkey itself, since the dissolution of the Soviet Union, has invested a lot of effort in trying to introduce and build in the region a culture of cooperation. This has several outcomes so far. So I wish to look at where we are in terms of regional institutional cooperation, and underlining their present status, to see the alarming picture and understand, appreciate how desperately we need to start working again. And of course, I will share with you a few lines regarding Turkey's policies and thoughts on the way ahead. First, if I may, Operation Black Sea Harmony is one of the most important for Turkey. The Black Sea Littoral State Border Coast Guard Cooperation Forum is another. I will mention these later. Black Sea 4 is a third initiative that Turkey sort of initiated. Confidence and security building measures in the naval field in the Black Sea. These were all examples of it, and this trend gained pace after the year 2000. Actually, there are three underlying principles of all of these. One is regional ownership. This is something we continue to underline. Second is continuous dialogue and coordination, most importantly among the littoral states. And third is the cooperative security. Then there was the BSEC, which was probably the first of these initiatives, which focused on economics, trade, rather than securities. But it did have the forefathers of the idea did have in mind of a concept of indirect security, where economic cooperation would eventually turn the wheels of security cooperation. So it did play an important role. Turkey is presently presiding, is the chairman of the until July. Unfortunately, after 25 years, I will touch upon the state that it is in. This is the picture we had 2005, 2006, 2007, but then we had the 2008 incidents. So I don't need to, everyone here knows what happened, but that was a major shock. We felt we managed to overcome the negative effects of this. We thought we contained, which brought us to year 2014, and it's still continuing repercussions. Now, in addition to these two, there is also the increased militarization of the Black Sea region. To be more specific, the Russian military buildup, and also the deployment of advanced anti-access area denial capabilities. Now, as a result of these developments and the deteriorating security environment, the mechanisms I just mentioned have stopped functioning. So if you look at them, the Operation Black Sea Harmony, it's still there, but it's not working. The Black Sea Littoral State Border Coast Guard Cooperation Forum Its activities are ongoing and have also been affected, albeit to a relatively lesser extent. Black Sea Naval Cooperation Task Group has unfortunately been de facto suspended. And then you have CSBM regime, which has become difficult, particularly in the context of exercises and visits which have not been conducted for a while. So, and BSEC is not producing much due to the political situation within. Mr. Mazur, how much time do we? Okay, so if I may, I wish to leave most of my remarks to the question and answers session, but where we are, I wanted to highlight the state of these mechanisms because they did really play an important role in the past, and looking ahead, we believe as Turkey that we need to find a way of starting dialogue in these. It's not easy, we don't have a magic formula, but we realize that we have to put some more energy in this. Now, this is the institutional dimension. About the other institutional dimension, which namely NATO, Colonel, here I don't want to steal your lines on it, but Warsaw Summit, the Wales Summit, both came after this shocking development in European security. And they have come up with certain decisions. Do you mind if I go ahead and say like 5, or do I leave these for later?
As you
Okay.
want. So
Okay. Now, Russia is on the one hand, an important partner in many fields, namely economy, energy, and Syria, and on the other hand, a force that challenges the existing system. To give examples, Georgia, Crimea, Donbass, military deployments, role in frozen conflicts. NATO's approach to Russia combines strong deterrence and defense with meaningful dialogue. That is the policy we restated at the Warsaw Summit in July last year, most recently. So our actions should reflect our dual approach of deterrence and dialogue, and thereby be geared to contribute to the security, but not undermine it. That's why we argue it's extremely important that the common vision, particularly our literal allies, should form the basis of our work within the alliance. Now, as I just stated, we will work to prevent a further erosion of existing mechanisms to the extent possible. One other thing I would like to highlight is the Montreux regime, which is there and has been functioning for the past 80 years with playing a very important role. The Montreux regime is a built-in element of the Black Sea, and whatever we do in the coming days in the Black Sea, we feel that we need to respect it fully. There's a very delicate balance, and we need to watch it. So one other thing was acting on a collective spirit, and lastly, we need to keep, I tried finishing with a positive note, but to continue seeking ways of promoting the need to enhance mutual trust and the common will for cooperation. The need for these is even more acute these days.
Thank you, Mr. Denktas. And thank you for mentioning Black Sea 4 initiative. It happened in 2001. At that time, I was first deputy minister, and I put my signature on behalf of my state to join the Black Sea 4. Good idea, good confidence building. Unfortunately, it is frozen. But we believe that time will come, and this initiative will have the new future. And now we have two other panelists, two military advisors. Well, we expect on their experience in that area, military political challenges, not easy situation. And I have a privilege and honor to invite the first speaker, the military advisor of the mission of Romania, Colonel Florin Romans. Please, you have floor.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first I'd like to point out that I am deeply honored to be a member of such a distinguished panel here, and thankful for inviting me. Same time, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak here in these prestigious higher education institutions, renowned for its dedication of expanding and sharing knowledge. Taking into account that Romania, the country that I'm representing here, is part of European Union and also a NATO member, I will try to offer you some perspectives from both angles in order to understand better the complexity of situation that we are talking about. I'll start with some general considerations. The Black Sea region has long represented the cornerstone for the international security, and the events in recent years are a confirmation for this. The dramatic changes that occurred in terms of the balance of power and the multiplication of threats in this region have important reverberations for the international geopolitics. The continuous building up of the arch of instability around the Black Sea is particularly affecting both the European Union and the NATO member states. The Black Sea region is of a strategic importance for the Romanian foreign policy. Since our accession to NATO and the EU, Romania has constantly raised awareness in both organizations about the opportunities as well as the challenges in the Black Sea region, taking into account its geostrategic importance for Europe and for Euro-Atlantic security and stability. Unfortunately, this is an area where military force has been used twice in the last 10 years. The invasion of Georgia in 2008 signalized Russia's will and ability to extend its control in the Black Sea. In 2014, the stability and security of the region have been gravely affected by the illegal annexation of the Crimean Peninsula, followed by its heavy militarization and the situation in eastern Ukraine. And this is in addition to the instability and volatility stemming from the existing protracted conflicts in Georgia, the Republic of Moldova, and between Armenia and Azerbaijan. All these events have serious consequences to go much beyond the Black Sea region and actually also beyond Euro-Atlantic security. The militarization of the Black Sea is a primary concern. Moreover, the sea has also been effectively used as a platform for projecting military force in other regions as well. The extension of the Russian military presence in Eastern Mediterranean enlarges Russia's sphere of influence and further menaces EU and NATO interests. That is why we believe that it's important to continue to address the Black Sea also from the perspective of its impact on the entire Euro-Atlantic security and not strictly as a regional issue. We welcome, therefore, the increasing importance attached to this area at the European Union and NATO level and believe that further measures should be adopted by both organizations. Coming to the European context, it's imperative to highlight the following aspects. The global strategy of the European Union's foreign and security policy adopted last year recognizes that Russia's violation of international law and the destabilization of Ukraine, on top of the protracted conflicts in the region, have challenged the European security order in its core. In this context, the European Union will uphold international law, democracy, and cooperation, enhance the resilience of its eastern neighbors, and uphold their right to determine freely their approach toward the EU. Drawing up upon the second strategic priority identified in the European Union, building the capacities of partners, and upon the presentation of the implementation plan on security and defense, the Council agreed that CSDP could also be used to provide expertise and assistance to strengthen partner resilience and counter hybrid threats. The Council invited the High Representative to present options for a more strategic approach to CSDP partnership cooperation with partner countries, including possibilities to strengthen the resilience of partners in the East. Passing to NATO framework, we need to take into consideration that in terms of hard security challenges, NATO has an important role to play both in terms for ensuring collective defense and projecting stability. NATO summit declarations adopted in Wales 2014 and Warsaw last year acknowledged the importance of the Black Sea as a component of Euro-Atlantic security. They also underscore the long-term negative effects of Russia's actions that are also contrary to the principle of the established confidence-building mechanism in the Black Sea. In accordance with the Warsaw decisions, the Allied ministers approved last year several recommendations for a strengthened NATO presence in the Black Sea region, in the land, air, and maritime domain. In February this year, NATO defense ministers agreed to additional maritime measures: an increased NATO naval presence in the Black Sea for enhanced training, exercises, and situational awareness, and a maritime coordination function for the standing naval forces when operating with other allied forces in the Black Sea region. All these measures are defensive in nature, proportionate and fully in line with international commitments. This is a legitimate response by NATO to a deteriorating security situation and to an aggressive behavior and posturing by the Russian Federation. The respective measures are an essential dimension of the alliance's role in dealing with current challenges and threats and ensuring the collective defense of its member states. In addition to measures aiming at consolidating NATO's deterrence and defense posture, it is also important to continue to provide an active support to partners in the Black Sea region, like Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova, with a focus on developing their national defense capabilities and increasing their resilience. This is the best investment we can make in preventing the further deterioration of the situation and the emergence of new crises. This is an area where better coordination as well as synergy between NATO and EU will be required. Continuing with the regional cooperation, it's essential to emphasize that also at national level, we are also constantly advocating for the consolidation of democracies, the respect for the human rights and empowerment of NGOs, the promotion of sustainable development despite the dire security situation. The strengthening of the regional cooperation remains the only way for transforming the Black Sea region from a confrontation area into a bridge between different peoples and cultures. Romania remains a strong supporter of the Black Sea synergy, given its potential for strengthening the cooperation among the countries in the region and for multiplying their ties to the European Union. Given the current troubling security and political situation around the Black Sea, the concrete projects implemented under the umbrella of the synergy are a unique opportunity for maintaining and developing contacts with the region with the valuable support of European Union. One of the best examples is represented by the Black Sea NGO Forum, an important tool for confidence building in the region, an initiative proposed and launched by Romanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 2008, and which has brought together over the years more than 900 NGOs from the Black Sea countries. Romania continues to support the forum through its official development assistance, and we highly appreciate the European Union's commitment towards this project as well. It is worth mentioning also the activity of the Black Sea Trust for Regional Cooperation, which was launched in 2007 by the German Marshall Fund in cooperation with the US Agency for International Development and other donors, but also with the support of the Romanian Foreign Ministry. It is a public-private partnership that contributes to the promotion of regional cooperation and good governance. To date, a number of 600 projects were funded in the countries of the region, focusing on the main programmatic areas, as civic participation, cross-border initiatives, Eastern Link, and confidence building. Also, the complex geopolitical context made a serious mark on the results of any demarches towards strengthening the cooperation in the region. The organization of the Black Sea Economic Cooperation continues to represent a multilateral framework for boosting stronger economic cooperation among its 12 member states. This year, the initiative will celebrate 25 years from the establishment in 1992 and is undergoing a reform process in order to increase the effectiveness and efficiency of its activity. To conclude, Romania, as an active member of NATO and EU, wishes to remain a point of reference for the cooperation in the Black Sea region, based on the principle of inclusiveness, transparency, and regional ownership, as my colleague here from Turkey also mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colonel Romans. Thank you for your sharing with us. By the way, we expected you and your ambassador to be today, but Ambassador Ion Jinga currently is presiding very important meetings in the Security Council today and tomorrow on the reforms of the Security Council. If it comes, so most probably all of us will work not on the reaction manner to cope with the conflicts, but to prevent them. Now I would like to give the floor to the second military advisor from Ukrainian mission, Colonel Mykhailo Kyrylenko. We have also his colleague in this audience, Andrei Yakovlev. Colonel Yakovlev, thank you for coming. You have floor, Colonel.
Thank you, Ambassador. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. From purely the military perspectives, my today's presentation will be focused on the one aspect of the Black Sea security issue, namely the growing militarization of Crimea. Slide, please. Indeed, the illegal occupation of Crimea by the Russian Federation in 2014, followed by the hybrid war against Ukraine, has changed the security and the military balance in the Black Sea region, not only by violating the basic principles of the international law, territorial integrity, but also by shifting the existed force deployments and frameworks. The key goal of the illegal occupation of Crimea is to transform the peninsula into the powerful military outpost in the region and beyond. This slide demonstrates three main tasks of the Russian presence in Crimea, namely, first, close operational zone with the goals to counter the United States plans to deploy elements of the ballistic missile defense system in the Eastern Europe, to respond to any US NATO military activities in the Black Sea region, to strengthen pressure on Ukraine and Georgia. Second, distant operational zone in order to ensure permanent presence of the Russian Navy in the Mediterranean Sea, to defend Russian interest in the Middle East, particularly in Syria. The third, a tension zone, which covers south of Ukraine, northern part of the Black Sea, Kerch Strait and the Sea of Azov, Abkhazian coast of Georgia and eastern part of the Black Sea, Syria and eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea. Next slide, please. Russia's illegal occupation of Crimea has shifted the military balance in the Black Sea more strongly in its favor and significantly expanded Russia's strategic footprint. As for today, the joint forces in Crimea amounts to 29,000 militia soldiers. This is significantly higher than the quantity of the Russian troops deployed in Crimea before the occupation. Subsequently, the number of the Russian troops and armaments will increase in 1.5 times up to 2020-2025 years. Indicator of the Russian military presence in the Crimea, including types of the military weaponry, are shown on this slide. Next slide, please. The joint task forces of the Russian Federation in Crimea functionally include three main components: land, air, and sea force. These forces allow Russia to carry out comprehensive military operation in southwestern strategic directions, which include water of the coastal areas, corresponding airspace of the Azov and Black Seas, as well as the fire operating zone in Mediterranean. Here you can also see location of the major joints of the parts of the Russian forces in Crimea. Next slide, please. Units which are located in the northern part of Crimea on a rotation basis include the battalion and company tactical groups in particular, shown on this slide, close to the Ukrainian administrative border. Next slide, please. The Russian highest military command pays particular attention to the modernization and upgrading of the weaponry of the Joint Task Force in Crimea. Russia announced it plans to spend $2.5 $3.4 billion over the next 4 years to bolster the fleet, including procurement of more modern surface ships and submarines, outfitted with the advanced cruise missiles as well as integrated air defense and ambitious amphibious landing capabilities. In addition to already deployed new submarines, frigates, and the small missile ships, all carriers of the cruise missiles caliber, it's expected that the following arms will be supplied in the short and medium term. Next slide, please. The Russian armed forces have already deployed carriers and other means capable to deliver nuclear weapons in Crimea. Russian cruiser Moskva with the missile system Vulcan, 3 submarines of the particular project, 1 frigate, 2 small missile ships of another new project, which are equipped with the cruise missiles caliber. Su-24 bombers, which can carry nuclear bombs. Moreover, in 2014-2015, Russia has started to reconstruct the nuclear ammunition depots in Crimea. Russia's aggressive policy towards nuclear objects in Crimea leaves no place for underestimation of the threats of nuclear rivalry in the Black Sea region. During the Cold War, the Black Sea region witnessed the deployment of tactical nuclear weapons on air and sea platforms, as well as the land-based system. Crimea used to have a nuclear status in the peninsula hosted during the most of the Cold War, and until 1996, non-strategic nuclear weapons in the facility near the city of Feodosia, Crimea. Particularly, more important that in January 2015, the 12th General Directorate of the Russian Military General Staff, which the military organ in charge of the maintenance, the transportation and the disposal of nuclear warheads for tactical and ballistic missiles, started to operate in Crimea. Next slide, please. There are no obstacle for Moscow to place others additional means of delivering nuclear weapons in Crimea, including Operation Tactical Missile Complex Iskander, additional fighter bombers as a Tupolev Tu-22M, which is a supersonic variable sweep wing long-range strategic and maritime strike bomber, and other armament which can have already used on the occupied territory during the previous training. By the way, the Tu-22M bombers would dash along the Russian borders, achieve its top speed, launch its the faster anti-ship missile in service today, Kh-50 NATO name kickback at the carriers, then scoot back to the safety of the Russian Air Force anti-air and other protection capability that would grant safety after the attack happened. Tu-22M deployment to Crimea, certainly the major upgrade in the anti-ship and long-range strike capability for region. The bottom line is that Fortress Crimea now features strategic bombers, that the scenario of the Russians having nuclear weapons in peninsula is becoming even more real nowadays. Next slide, please. This slide demonstrates the next slide, please. This slide demonstrates the range of the missile system which can be used by Russia in Crimea. Short-range ballistic missile system Iskander-M with the range of 500 kilometers. Bastion coastal missile system Club K and Caliber missile system with a range of 300 kilometers. Ball coastal missile system with a range up to 260 kilometers. Next slide, please. This slide demonstrates the combat capability of the 15th Coastal Missile Brigade of the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation. Ranges of possible missile strikes are marked on the slide. Next slide, please. On April 18-24, 2016, several naval units held the nuclear weapons exercise in Crimea. Main tasks of the exercise were strategic deterrency, defending against cruise missile attacks, destruction of the critical facilities with the high-precision weapons. Next slide, please. Ukraine strongly condemns the numerous military exercises conducted on the occupied territory and near the borders. During the recent exercise, Caucasus 2016, the Black Sea Fleet conducted training on defense and tactical group ships at the sea, search and rescue operation, elements of the marine amphibious operation, including rocket and artillery fires. In particular, in September 7-8, 2016, the strategic bombers 295MS and 222M carried out conventional missiles and bomb strikes on the defined targets on the territory of Crimea, Chauda range. Next slide, please. On September this year, the rocket launch and development site of PUK, the units of airborne forces and Marine Corps of the Armed Forces of Russia Federation worked out the elements of the naval airborne landing operation with transition to the offensive actions. The particular launch of the missile C-400 Triumph was conducted by the Anti-Aircraft Missile Regiment of the Russia Air Force Defense Forces at the mentioned site of PUK. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So as a conclusions, the military exercise Caucasus 2016 is another evidence of the Russia violation of the international law and the real threat to the other states of the Black Sea region. The growing militarization of Crimea by an aggressor state increases the possibility of armed conflict in the region. The third, the United States and NATO response to Russia policy in Europe since 2014 has focused heavily on the deterring possible Russia threats to the Baltic region. However, Russia is given increased priority to expanding its military power and influence in the Black Sea area. The United States and NATO need to pay increased attention to enhancing security and deterrency in the Black Sea area. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Colonel Kyrylenko. And now floor is open for your questions. Please name yourself, be concise in your statements, questions. Please, who starts the? Please.
Good afternoon, my name is Ross Kastner. I'm a graduate student here at the Jackson Institute, and I was curious, it's kind of an open question for the panel, but what are the biggest, militarily, what are the biggest challenges to cooperation amongst the littoral states when it comes to exercising joint exercises? Is it communication? Are there other considerations that you would find more challenging than others?
Well, you address it concretely to somebody, or?
Most likely starting with Colonel Romans.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Regarding the NATO presence in the Black Sea region and the enhanced presence of the NATO in this region, trying to exercise and train the forces, it's part of a plan. And I think this year are planned more than 30 multinational exercises in the Black Sea region. I don't think it's we have a challenge due to a specific problem. This is the reason, the main reason that we try to train together and to exercise procedures together to find the best way to cooperate and to coordinate our actions in the Black Sea area without any problems. And if we could identify any issues during this kind of exercises, to fix it in a timely manner. So from my point of view, I think the only challenge remains for the Black Sea region exercises the Montreux Convention, which this convention limits the time and the size of the ships for non-Black Sea states that could participate in this kind of exercises. As you know, the convention limit to 21st days the presence of non-Black Sea states in the Black Sea. So it's a little bit difficult for the allies that want to send the ships in the Black Sea region for exercises to provide the continuity of the presence in the Black Sea. So we should have a plan which is already in place and to stick with it. As I told you, and I repeat, this years we have more than 30 exercises planned in the Black Sea region.
Thank you.
My name is Lena Lennon. I teach political science at University of New Haven. I'm from Ukraine. And my question was to Colonel Kyrylenko. Particularly what you were talking about is so relevant in the discussion that's going on in the United States today with regard to providing lethal versus non-lethal help to Ukraine. Congress last year passed a bill providing $300 million of non-lethal help, and there's still resistance as far as providing lethal help. So as far as, mortars, anti-tank missiles, those things are out of the question right now. Obama has been a strong opponent to providing lethal help to Ukraine. We don't know what to expect from Trump's administration, but can you walk us through specifically, if there's a military solution, what kind of lethal help does Ukraine need right now? With all the equipment that Russia is putting in Crimea, if the United States were to go forward with approving lethal help, what would it look like practically? Secondly, can you walk us through counterfactuals? What are the advantages and disadvantages of the United States getting involved in the Ukrainian conflict by providing lethal weapons?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your questions. Two questions. From my point of view, from point of view and Minister of Defense of Ukraine, the main lethal help, the weaponry, is supposed to be the anti-tank missiles complex, which is urgently needed, protecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine and the eastern border of Ukraine during the anti-terrorist operation there. Secondly, so far the United States provided the huge amount of non-lethal help to Ukraine, to the armed forces of Ukraine, starting from educating and training the Ukrainian military, providing some means of recon, anti-battery radars as well. So this help is needed in Ukraine, the armed forces of Ukraine, and we really rely on it. Thank you.
Yuriy, if I may add, the issue of lethal help to Ukraine was always on the political agenda, just like the issue of military cooperation between the countries. There are political connotations to that. But, if you don't send the right message to the other side, then the other side may interpret this as an invitation to continue such policies. I doubt that so-called separatists in eastern Ukraine have got their weaponry, particularly the latest models, in a supermarket. Obviously, not that one, Voentorg. But obviously, the point is that maybe a message of we might supply Ukraine with lethal help might have had a different effect. over the other side's actions, as a matter of fact. We don't know it because this decision was not taken because of unwillingness to antagonize Russia. However, even from this situation, there is a solution. Financial aid to Ukraine, particularly for military purposes, could help Ukraine produce its own anti-tank systems for defense reasons. Therefore, I would not discount simply the non-lethal means, because there are ways around the non-lethal means. The question is what kind of political decisions will be taken by, was taken and will be taken by the new administration. What kind of messages will be sent? Thank you. Sorry.
Now your turn.
My name is Mykhailo. I have a question regarding, first of all, let me make two comments. I mean, considering the fragility of the European Union and decreased capability of projecting soft power, let alone hard power, and also considering the fact that the current Trump administration, well, let's put it this way, unpredictable foreign policy. Don't you think that the Russians already feel like they have established their dominance in the Black Sea region, and that's why they would not see any more reason to start any new adventures?
Who wants to answer?
If I may quickly, maybe Kaha, then, yeah.
Okay, go ahead and
yeah.
I'll...
Phone conversation between Presidents Trump and Putin was followed by an increase of military activity in Avdiivka in eastern Ukraine. Was it a coincidence or a misinterpretation of messages on both sides? I'm saying this seriously because there is, in my personal opinion, there is no understanding in the West that the Russians are speaking a different language, not only linguistically, mentally speaking. You need a translator, essentially, to... There is a joke, there is a translator between women and men. You know, you have to interpret what women say to men and what men say to women. But there is definitely an interpretation necessary between Eastern and Western Europe, and generally West and East, understanding of messages. Phone conversation, immediately an increase of military activity on the pro-Russian side in Avdiivka. Statement in UN that followed, and immediately a decrease in such an activity. A statement in UN was very clear. So whatever they discussed over the phone in UN, there was a right statement, relatively right statement with the right message, and then everything calmed down. Was it related to that? We don't know for sure, but definitely these kind of messages need to be well thought. That's why I have actually suggested that earlier that a panel of experts from both Eastern and Western Europe and United States may be invited by either a non-governmental organization or by White House and sit down and try to build a little bit on the knowledge of the experts and different types of interpretations and languages, but also on some strategic issues in the future. I suggested that in the past, I suggest that may work in the future, who knows.
Thank you, Vlad.
If I may add to that. Well, you mentioned about soft power of the EU. I don't think that EU soft power is anyway decreasing for the only reason that there is an idea of Europe. The idea of Europe towards which all the countries that are at this table, well, Romania is part of it, EU, but Turkey, Moldova, Georgia, Ukraine, all gravitate towards the European idea. And the idea is the values. We're not talking about the geographical shapes of the continent, let me put it this way. With regard to the other premise, if I understood correctly, of your question, the new administration and its attempt to, or the statements to normalize relations with Russia. I may say that every administration in this country tried to do so. Even more so, every Georgian government in first years of its tenure tried to normalize relations with Russian Federation. This is the premise. Even if you believe that nothing will come out of it, there is still a theoretical chance. And if I were in the shoes of a leader of any country, I would not miss even that theoretical chance of not trying it. Now, you've been given a lot of details. In my opening statement, I deliberately didn't go into details because I understand I'm in an audience that you very well know all the issues that we talked about, and I didn't want to be redundant. And all the details that our military experts gave here are very important to have a better picture. Very dear to me as someone who had a position of a two-star general some 18 years ago when I was doing the national security for my country. And I was also part of the pipeline project from my country's government involved in those. But those details today are rather irrelevant in a way because we need to understand what drives Russia to behave the way it behaves today. And only through that we can build then the response to it. Now, I can talk endlessly why I think that Russia does what it does, but the bottom line here is, again, the idea. We gravitate towards Europe because of the European idea. People gravitate toward the United States because of an American idea. And I got a lot of American friends who tell me that American dream does not exist in the way it was maybe a century or more ago. But even if 1 out of a million becomes relatively successful, that dream exists outside of the United States. And it's not what you are, it's how you are perceived by the rest of the world. There is a European idea. What is the Russian idea? Russia needs to reinvent itself after the collapse of the Soviet Union. What is the Russian idea? Russian idea is a greater Russia, magnanimous Russia. That translates into a size. Size at the expense of whom? The neighbors. And you've heard in every intervention here the word Russia in various contexts. And if we had Baltic states here, they would also say Russia. Believe me, I don't have any antagonism towards the country, nor the people more so. But Georgians could be mistaken. Ukrainians could be wrong. Baltics could be paranoid. Moldovans, Turks, everybody. But it's simply impossible for everyone to be wrong when on the other side is just one player. Maybe that player has to rethink itself. And in the first place, to rethink the idea. Because if you want to build a nation, truly build a nation, a successful nation, you definitely need an idea. And the idea is not a vague concept. We are what we think we are.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. My name is Israfi. I'm Yale International Fact Fellow from Turkey. And I'm happy to listen to such a cooperative panel. But at the same time, I'm sorry since the table is incomplete since there's no representative of Bulgaria and Russia. I hope some representatives to be at the table. When I come to my question, yesterday indeed I were also in another panel with the title Competitive Cities. And I just comment on this panel with Benjamin Barber, a political theorist, ideas. And he's arguing in his studies the failure of nation states to address global problems like climate change, poverty, and terrorism. And arguing that cities and intercity associations are more effectively addressing global shared concerns. This is just a theory. And I'm not the expert on this theory, I just want to comment on this. And the title of his book is If Majors Rule the World, Dysfunctional Nations and Rising Cities. And when I was listening to you, I remember this, and also I remember the popular expression of in Turkey, the world is bigger than five, which is one of the well-known critics to the structure of the United Nations. And on the other hand, there's also another experience, BRICS countries experience, but we still have 5 countries, and I'm not sure about the future of the BRICS countries. So I'm just changing the Benjamin Barber's question to the case, is the UN and similar international organizations today dysfunctional and obsolete? Sure, these questions have no yes, no answers, but I just want to hear from you. Thanks so much.
Well, I guess we all have to take this. Firstly, UN is not obsolete. Obviously, UN is criticized, and quite often quite justifiably criticized because of the failure when it comes to security. But there is a good portion of the UN work which is invisible, and this goes to the development. So UN really does a lot when it comes to economic and social development. But when it comes to the security, what is United Nations? United Nations is not a building that is in New York. It is an organization that is owned by the member states. And all the failures that are with regard to the security is because of the failure of the Security Council to act. Now, in that regard, I do agree that the working method of the Security Council needs to be changed. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons, not just one, but the only reason our friend and colleague, Romanian Ambassador Ion Ginga, is not here, is that he is a co-chair of the IGN, Intergovernmental Negotiations on the Security Council reform. And we both missed that discussion today, but our respective delegations are there and delivering respective statements. Yes, UN needs to do more, and I would advise you to go to what our Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, and his vision in the surge of diplomacy. And he really wants UN to play a stronger role. He's very much determined. Now, it's on us, on all the membership, to support him and to make sure that UN becomes more relevant in addressing the core issues of security, where the interests of those 5 that you mentioned clash. Vlad, probably.
There is
But
little.
you're still in the list of speakers in the Security Council discussion today.
Yes,
There's 29 in the list.
29th, and
You have a
Kaha is
chance
near
to-
me.
Have a chance to
But we
share.
will not manage to go to discuss this topic. It's a long drive. I would like to add 2 more phrases. UN is not the organization that is running the member states. The perception that UN will come and solve for us our problems, expecting some form of messiah to descend over our problems and solve them for us, it's a completely wrong perception that is very widespread in the world, and it's widespread by the media too. United Nations means member states sitting together and solving the problem. And what Kaha said is the actual United Nations. It's not the UN that does something. It's us that we can do or we cannot do something. And it depends on the realpolitik. UN is theoretically is a liberal construct. It's a result of the liberal thinking. However, within the UN, the states play realpolitik, and it goes according to realism, not according to liberalism. It's not a global government. It's a policy writing organization that has a branch that deals with development. Do you know that one of the UN agencies is extremely popular in the United States, and majority of the people do not link it with the UN. It's UNICEF. People don't think of UNICEF as UN, but it is UN. It's one of the agencies of United Nations. Everybody in the US, or the majority of the people in the US, say UNICEF is doing a good job, and it is doing a good job. So there are many aspects. Yes, you're right. There is no yes or no question. You have to take into account the role of each of the institutions of the UN, and the fact that those 5 can stop certain decisions in the Security Council, but also the fact that the others can play their part around those Security Council decisions as much as they can. Ultimately, I'm afraid we are facing a realpolitik situation within the Yale institution. We are facing a realist school of international relations, the anarchy of international relations with UN as a part of the game, not an attempt to simply change it.
I mean, maybe I will be repeating Mr. Ambassador's, but UN is us. I mean, the international community is the UN. So when we don't do anything, UN doesn't do anything. So the credit goes for all of us, and the misgivings and the limitations are also ours. Maybe a good way to judge this is to think of what would have happened if the UN weren't there. To turn it upside down, would the number of conflicts have increased, or it's a good way to look at it. If you're curious, there was an open debate at the Security Council several weeks ago, which Ukrainian presidency had organized, and all countries, I think more than 50 countries went up stage and took up the microphone and shared their views on how to make this better. And there is a need to reform the UN, and there is work under progress, and people have different views, and they're trying to agree on how to do it. Of course, it's not an easy job.
Thank you all for being here.
You have a question, or just to discuss this one?
I have a question.
Okay, just this good question you raised. When we are debating it in our classes here, so I raised before the students always when it comes to the United Nations. So let's imagine, had the United Nations existed in 1914 or in 1939, if we might have prevented the Second and the First World Wars? My question is no. No. And it will not happen until we are playing the role in the Security Council as the fire extinguisher instead of to be a smoke detector. The smoke detector and a quick reaction, what to do. Preventive diplomacy and preventive measures which are prescribed by the United Nations Charter. So everything is there, but they are not implemented. And so that's why Ambassador of Romania is there trying to, of course, all these discussions, they are long-lasting, most probably open-endless, but still all these discussions, they're bringing the visions closer. Well, but for sure, we are to be more preventive. Particularly when we have all the signs and indicators when the crises they started, what are the roots of any crises? Social, human rights, developments, or whatever. So, Security Council is a body which should be reformatted or first, and then to all the member states, they are to think how to implement what was agreed in 1945. If you look at the charter, everything is there, everything. Preventive diplomacy, including the reaction, preventive in Article 6, reaction in Article 7. Sorry, now you have.
Thank you all for being here. I have a question to address to Colonel Roman, Romania, and it has to do with more internal politics in Romania, but since you're the first person I met from Romania, take advantage of this. Can you shine a light on what Prosecutor Kovesi is doing and how successful she is and what the problems that she faces and as far as you're concerned, the prognosis for her continuing this program. For the general audience, she's been, at least according to the Western media, she's made enormous progress in terms of fighting corruption in Romania, and perhaps the only country in Eastern Europe which is doing this sort of thing to this extent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank for the question, but being a military, for me, it's a little bit difficult to make such a statement regarding the other institution of our government. As far as I know, his job is very well received by the Romanian population, and probably you are aware that we have a lot of meetings back home in support of this the institution and ruled by Ms. Kövesi. I could only say that from being a representative of Romania, she has all our support for what she is doing. But I couldn't say more because, for me it's a little bit difficult to comment on what's happened back home right now regarding this institution.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let me, on your behalf, to thank all our panelists. Thank you for coming. All the best in all your endeavors in the United Nations and bring the changes to the Security Council as soon as possible, and the revitalization of General Assembly, which is also very important as a forum. Thank you very much.